All right. Well, welcome again. My name is Ailish Wasserman, and I am Schaefer Leadership's program manager. I will also be acting as your digital producer today. And we are, this is our first, like I said, this is our first July session. And I'm super excited about this topic and also excited to have our facilitator, Deneen, with us this morning. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Please keep yourself on mute. I know there's some people that are not on mute right now, but unless you're talking or would like to share something, please keep yourself muted so it eliminates background noise because that can happen, and it's been happening more frequently lately on our sessions. But we do want to hear from you. So one thing that we say about Schaefer Leadership is that our sessions are interactive, facilitative. It's about learning and community. So if you have a question, a burning question, you can unmute and ask. Also, you can use the chat box, of course, to interact. We will have some breakout sessions today, so I do want to share that ahead of time. And those breakout sessions, is best to have your camera on. So we do appreciate everyone who does have their camera on right now. That makes a difference in our interaction. Another thing I'll share is that there is a workbook, and I sent the workbook link out yesterday via email. Should be able to also drop that in the chat box, but that's something that we'll utilize for the session. And then, it's best if you can, if you have already, if you can print it, that would be helpful for an hour later so that you can look back on it and take some notes because there's lots of great stuff in there. But otherwise, again, welcome. We just had some more folks come in, so I'll say my name again. My name is Ailish. I'll be your digital producer. If you have any questions, concerns, etc., please just message me directly in the chat box. But otherwise, I want to make sure that we introduce our facilitator today. So just a moment here. So our facilitator is Deneen Attard, and Attard Leadership Academy. She's the founder of that, and she is deeply committed to empowering women to develop their leadership skills. Deneen has over 15 years of experience in mentoring leaders across Fortune 500 companies, higher education institutions, and nonprofit organizations. She really integrates a growth mindset and positive psychology techniques in her strategy. She has a master's degree in multiple leadership and digital entrepreneurship certifications, and graduate learning studies in human resource management. So Deneen and I connected a long time ago, and when I say a long time ago, it seems like a long time ago. So I'm really excited to have her wisdom and her leadership as part of this really important topic about elevating your influence and credibility. So I think we should be ready to go. If you have any questions, please let me know. And Deneen, take it away.
Thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I am excited because I get to say good morning to some Hoosiers, because being in Florida, no one has any idea of what it is. And then when I say I'm a Hoosier, they look at me like, you're a what? But it is exciting to be able to talk to someone that's in Indiana. I was born and raised in Indiana. I went to Indiana University. Finished out in Bloomington, and I know you're in another region, but don't hate me because I went to IU. And then I did my graduate degree in Indiana Wesleyan in Indianapolis, Indiana. And so again, I'm always excited to talk to someone from home. I have lived in Texas, where they had an accent, but they told me I had an accent, which I thought was hilarious, because everyone that meets me, they say, you have an accent. And I was like, Indiana doesn't have an accent. But I meet other Indiana individuals, and they have been told the same thing. So you guys, for some reason or another, everyone thinks we have an accent, but I'm okay with that. I do not say y'all, as in when I was in Texas, it became a part of my vocabulary. So I had to purge that when I got to Florida. I believe that connecting with each other is very, very important. And that doesn't matter if you're doing it face to face or if you're doing it like we're doing it in Zoom. So one thing I want to do, and especially since today we're talking about it, elevating and influence and credibility, is networking. If you would be so kind, I'm going to give you the opportunity to drop your URL for your LinkedIn and one fun fact about you in the chat box, because you're on this meeting with a bunch of very intelligent, bright individuals who may very well hold the answer to a pressing problem that you have, whether it be in your growth and development as a leader, may it be a project that you're working on. But I want to encourage you to take some time to drop your URL in there so that you can connect with the rest of the individuals on this call. Since I asked you to share one fun fact, I'll share one about myself. You already know that I'm a Hoosier. One fun fact that I'm really excited about, and I still reflect on it today, was that I had the opportunity to interview the U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of Malta, and it was simply by accident almost. We were going there for a wedding, and my husband shared with me who the ambassador was, and so I submitted and I was accepted and I was able to conduct that interview and it was put into print. And that was one of the greatest responsibilities that it was a great responsibility, but it was an opportunity that I truly enjoyed. I didn't realize until I got back home that the process of usually going to go visit at that time to an embassy could take up to 6 months to a year. And mine had a turnaround time of less than 30 days. So I was excited. And to be able to talk to her and learn about her journey, and this happened to be a woman of color, and she talked about how she had traveled across the globe and the fact that she was fluent in Maltese. I have not mastered that. I can only say about 5 words in Maltese, none of which I can share here, but it was a fun thing. So I am going to take a look and see who we have in the, we have Joseph James. Thank you so much. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for leaving that. Hoosiers don't have an accent like that, James. And then, okay, Ellis, I see yours again. Kara, thank you so much. One fun fact about me is that I have lived in rural Indiana and rural India. They do have accents. Yes, they do. Thank you so much for those of you who are sharing. Please, throughout this presentation, share. We will be doing an activity where you're going to be working on, we're going to talk about LinkedIn. But for now, I am going to share my screen, and I need everyone to let me know if you're able to see that screen. Thumbs up. I see thumbs up. Thank you so very much. Give me one moment while I move some things around so that I can see what I need to be seeing. Come on. Let's minimize that. Okay, excellent. So everyone can see elevating influence and credibility?
Yes.
Excellent. Again, a couple of things I want to keep in mind. I am one of those presenters that loves engagement because I feel that if you took the time to be up and active at 8 o'clock in the morning, I want to make sure that we get everything that we can out of this presentation. And the best way to do that is for you to engage in conversation. And we are going to have several breakout sessions to where you'll get to know individuals on the call and you'll get to do some brainstorming. And then you'll come back and you will share what you have gained during that discussion. Couple of things I want to talk about before we dive in is that you have a workbook. And I know probably when you received that workbook, you said, oh my goodness, how many pages are in this thing? And the reason for that is because I wanted you to be able to walk away with some substantial information. And I also wanted you to be able to write inside of that journal. I attended a workshop and the individual psychologist was talking about executive functioning. And one of the things that stuck with me is that when you're writing what you're hearing, it reinforces your learning because you're engaging 2 parts of your brain. And that stuck with me, and I do it now. Of course, it's sometimes convenient to type, but I've also found that when I'm typing and listening to someone, I'm really not listening to them because I'm so focused on what I am typing that I occasionally miss. But just wanted to give you a heads up. That's the reason why you have a writable journal instead of a fillable one where you can do it on the computer. Without further ado, today's objectives, we're going to talk about understanding influence and credibility, applying strategies to persuade and influence decision-making effectively, navigate office dynamics without compromising your values, developing actionable influence tactics to gain support and drive change. Let's set some foundational work here first. I want to talk to you about setting the foundation. Can we all agree that we are constantly evolving and changing and growing? Would everyone say yes to that? I can't see your chat, so I am going to, and nor can I see your face, so I'm going to assume you're nodding your head and you're saying yes. One way that I've found to be able to grow and develop and become more self-aware is through journaling. I was first introduced to journaling when I was doing a certification to become a certified mindset for success coach. And that principle is built on neuroscience, which is the brain's ability to rewire. And one of the things that they had us do is that we consistently journaled about our experiences. I believe in journaling so much because I have seen the fruits of journaling in my own life, as well as when I'm working with other individuals. Number one, you can track your growth, your areas in need of development. And so that is the reason why I am a fan of journaling. And I hope by the end of this, that if you aren't already journaling, that you will embrace that. So let's talk about self-awareness. Self-awareness is objectively perceiving, recognizing, and understanding your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, strengths, weaknesses, and motivations. Basically, it's learning who you are, what makes you tick, what pushes your button. And the great thing about understanding what pushes your button is that you can be prepared. I remember early in my career, I wasn't that self-aware. Maybe you were, but I wasn't. And so sometimes people could say things and that would just either make me shut up or either set me off. And you can imagine that did not help my career one bit. But as I grew and I gained a mentor, I learned about myself, what motivates me, and that helped my career. Some of the benefits of becoming self-aware, of course, is personal growth. The more you know about yourself, the more you can change and increase effectiveness. The other one is that you become more effective with emotional intelligence. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of emotional intelligence. When we think about emotional intelligence, I think that we become more effective as leaders when we master that. When we talk about personal growth, understanding our strengths and weaknesses helps us to identify areas for improvement, as I said before, and enables us to set meaningful goals. Another recap for the emotional intelligence is knowing your emotions. When you know your emotions, you can effectively manage them through emotional intelligence. Got a couple of more benefits that I want to share with you. One is improved decision-making, which we've discussed before. Being self-aware allows us to make better decisions because we are more conscious of our values, beliefs, and biases that might influence our choices. Hold on to that word values because we're going to talk about that later on when we're talking about how to navigate office politics. It helps you to build stronger relationships. Understanding yourself allows you to empathize with others, communicate effectively, and build more meaningful relationships. And here's a big one. When you become more self-aware, it reduces your stress. And how many of us could use a break from stress? I know I could. Now, what I want you to do is to think back to a term I'm quite sure that many of you are aware of. And I'll ask someone if they want to come off of mute to be able to share. In self-awareness, one of the main key ingredients is mindset. How many of you are familiar with the term mindset? We've got growth mindset, and we've got fixed mindset. Do I have a volunteer who is going to kick us off to come off mute and share their experience and what they believe growth mindset is and why it's important? Come on, I know someone out there is ready to share.
I would
I
say,
well,
oh,
I
go
think
ahead,
growth
Carrie,
mind.
sorry.
Oh, I mean growth mindset. I think it's just you're always you don't settle for a place. You're always looking for opportunities to grow, whether it be personally, spiritually. I think that when you really have a growth mindset, I think you're looking at all those areas. Trying to actively look for opportunities to grow. I think you've got kind of search for them and seek them out sometimes. And this is a good example here.
Excellent. That's
To
Carrie,
grow
right?
into things.
Carrie, was that Carrie that was speaking?
Yeah, the ball-headed guy over.
Thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate it. Someone else was getting ready to speak. Would you please go ahead and share as well if you have something else you'd like to add to the discussion?
Sure, this is Kara.
Hello.
I think of growth mindset as knowing that the way our brain is wired now is not how it's always going to be, right? So, I use this with my kids when they say I'm not good at math. That's not very growth mindset based. But if we say I'm not good at this concept yet, but I'm going to practice, right? That we can enhance and change over time. We're not just kind of static, we're dynamic.
Kara, thank you so much for sharing that. Both of you made some really great points. When we think about, I get excited when I think about growth mindset because that means that ability to learn something new, to explore a new opportunity that you haven't explored before. It also leads to our ability to grow and to relate to others. And this is so important. And the reason why I bring it up in this context is that I want you to go into this training with a growth mindset because there may be some areas to where you might have a certain perception about what we're going to talk about. And I ask that you have an open mind to receive. And when you're in your breakout groups and your peers start to bring in different perspectives, that you continue with that growth mindset so that you can grow and develop. We may not always agree, but when we're able to receive and understand another person's perspective, that helps us be better leaders. Now, we've laid the foundation. Does anyone have any questions about mindset or the importance of journaling before we dive into our presentation and start talking about understanding influence and credibility? If you have a question, you can use the little hand, and Elise, I will
Um,
ask you let me know if they have questions because I can't see that part of the screen. I heard someone talking, so go right ahead.
yes, so I was going to say thank you. This is exciting for me. This is Charlotte, and I'm on the phone, so you won't be able to see my face. But one of the things I do appreciate about focusing on a growth mindset is not being stuck in the past. So if you're going to be focusing on and understanding how to influence others, how you may have influenced in the past may not work now or in the current situation. And so, thank you.
You are welcome, and you hit on a good point. You says how you have influenced in the past may not be the way that you do it going forward. We're going to talk about some techniques to help you gain influence later on in the presentation. So thank you so much. You are ahead of the game in what you're thinking. Let's dive in. Unless someone else, is there a hand raised or anyone else want to share anything else? Okay, let's go ahead. What is influence and credibility? And I want to make sure that we lay this strong foundation. Influence refers to your ability to affect the behaviors, attitudes, opinions, and decisions of others within the workplace. And we all know as a leader, when there's a decision that is rolled out that has to be implemented through the organization, through the department, that is the time that you need influence. It's about having an impact on people and situations, even when you don't have that formal authority. Many times you can be in a position that your title does not afford you what they call legal authority. But When you cultivate those relationships and you're building relationships, you will develop that formal authority without the title. Next, credibility. Credibility is the quality of being trusted and believed in. And we all know that as leaders, credibility is crucial to getting the buy-in of your peers, of your teammates, and especially if you're lobbying to get something changed within your organization, having that credibility is critical to influence. Credibility is earned over time with each action, with each word that we speak. It takes us closer and closer to gaining the credibility that we need to make changes within our organization and changes within our personal lives. Everything that we're talking about here today, it's not just applicable in your professional role. These techniques will work in your personal role when you're building relationships with outside of work. And let's shift to one of the easiest free ways to build influence and credibility. So I'm going to start off and give you one off the bat, free of charge. One of the ways that you can build influence and gain credibility that people often overlook unless it's part of their job is LinkedIn. How many of you are actively on LinkedIn? And if you'd be so kind as to put a Y in the chat for yes, that would be wonderful. Christina, I see you're there. Excellent. Andrea, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Yes. Okay. Markel, I hope that I said that right. You're on there. Okay, Katie, I see the majority. Sometimes, June, I love your transparency. Yes, I have an account, but not super active. Angela, I see that. And Carrie, you said yes. Well, I see a lot of you say yes, and then some of you even shared that not active. What I want to do is talk to you about the reason why I think that being active on LinkedIn helps you to build influence and credibility. I'll share my own experience. When I was working in higher education as an academic dean, one of the things that I wanted to do was to maximize my prior experience in leadership development and training and development. You can see that there's a path that I'm taking you on. So I wanted to do that, but in an academic role, there really wasn't much opportunity when I'm advising a student. I mean, yes, I could share some leadership qualities, but I wanted to make sure that people saw me as an expert in leadership development and training. So I went to LinkedIn. I started to branding myself on LinkedIn. I started to posting content that was relevant to leadership development, soft skills. And that same technique is something that you can use in your own environment. Whatever industry that you're working in, and I know there were some individuals that are in banking, some are in higher education, and then some are in financial institutions, and there were other industries. Whatever industry that you are in, you have the ability to use LinkedIn to gain credibility and influence. Because what's going to happen is the first time you meet someone, whether or not they ask you for your URL or what you're tagged at in LinkedIn, they are going to go to LinkedIn to find out more about you, which is the reason why you want to use it effectively. You may be in a role that you have to consider what you share on LinkedIn. But if you always follow the note of making sure what you share is professional, it sets a good foundation for who you are and what you value. And it also gives you the ability to share your expertise. You can't go wrong when you're using those three principles. LinkedIn is also a search engine, meaning that you want to use keywords. And some other things to think about when you are working into LinkedIn is to make sure you have a completed profile, professional picture, a full detailed summary, and then to be able to engage, make sure that you're joining groups that suit your interest, and commenting and engaging, sharing valuable content, engaging with the network, with your network on LinkedIn, and using those groups to your advantage, because we all know that we are connected through the internet, and LinkedIn is one of the finest ways for you to be able to connect with your peers across the world. And no, LinkedIn is not paying me. I am not an affiliate. I just believe that that is a great way to gain influence without spending any money. I want to check the comments to see if, yes, Elise, it is far reaching. I want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. And so now that we've talked about influence and credibility, and we have a foundation for that, before I move into that, anyone have any questions? And if I don't see anything in the chat, I am going to continue on. Okay. Why is influence and credibility important? Now this is your time. I want to hear from a couple of you. Why do you think gaining influence and credibility is important? Obviously, it's important because you invested time and resources to be here, but I want to hear from you. Why is it important? Please take yourselves off of mute and go ahead and share.
Hi, this is Liz Haney from Ball State University.
Hello.
And for me, the influence is really about being effective in my job and in my workplace. I have found that there are times when I have all the facts on my side, all the data on my side, all of the regulations and such as that, and yet no one's listening. And so, you know, I have found that in higher ed, that, you know, sometimes the influence and the credibility can be the difference between accomplishing what I want to accomplish versus, you know, being kind of shut down.
You are right on point. Thank you so much for sharing, Liz. We can do all the fact finding, but if we don't have some allies or some people that are supporting and that will lobby on our behalf, and we'll talk about that later, our projects won't get very far. Thank you so much for sharing. Does anyone else want to share on why influence and credibility is important?
It builds trust and, you know, it helps your reputation.
You guys are on it. You're right. It builds trust because people are going to gravitate towards you when they trust you. When they trust you, then they'll start to listening to you. If someone is constantly lying to you, they don't keep their word, they don't deliver on their promises, they're not going to have very much impact over you when it comes to influencing you to go their way on a decision. I want to also remind you that both influence and credibility help leaders guide their teams, drive change, and achieve organizational goals. Someone mentioned earlier career advancement. Those that have the ability to influence and have a high level of credibility also have a more successful journey in navigating their careers for promotion and leadership roles. And we'd all like to believe, and it would be great if it was a world where you were simply promoted on your merit of who you are and what you have delivered. But we all know that that doesn't happen all the time. There is this thing called office politics, which we'll talk about later on, that puts a glitch in the system. But we're going to learn how to go around those. Another thing, the reason why influence and credibility is important is it helps with your team dynamics. When your team trusts and respects you, you can facilitate positive change and build strong relationships with your team members. Influence and credibility is important also because it helps you with conflict resolution. When you have credibility, you are better positioned to mediate conflict, gain influence, and change outcomes with all of the parties that you're working with. We talked about change management. Give me 1 second. Let me check my chat and make sure I haven't missed any points. Leslie, thank you so very much. Let's talk about some components of building credibility. Does anyone have any thoughts before we go on? I want to make sure that I give everyone a chance to engage, ask questions before we move on to the next session. I hear
I was
silence.
just going to say, oh, I was just going to say Warren Buffett with
Go
people
ahead.
he knows, likes, and trusts, and obviously, right? And people feel like even if they don't know you, you've talked to them for an hour and you felt like you've known them, your whole life. Work on those. I think some of that comes naturally with some people's personalities, but I think that we can for those skills. So um, I think that as we develop that, people trust us if they feel like they know us, if we're likable. You'd
Yeah, Carrie, your audio is cutting in and out.
you would maybe am I in and out?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We've got the general message, I think, but it's been
Got it.
going.
Okay.
Carrie, you hit on a crucial thing. You said, and it made me remember, sometimes you might not be comfortable. This might be something new, the idea of moving towards trying to gain influence. Credibility, I'm going to assume that everyone wants to be credible, but gaining that influence might be something new and it might be out of your comfort zone. But when we are transparent and we articulate that and we're authentic, it also makes the other person more open to receiving from us. And that, you're right, takes time. We don't gain influence overnight. You might gain popularity on a social media platform overnight, but in the work environment, that is built over time through each and every interaction. And so thank you so much for coming off mute and being able to share that. Is anyone else sitting perched and ready to share some more information before we go on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, I think that this is important because every voice matters. Sometimes we just listen to those that are the loudest, but we really are greater together. All of our perspectives that we have to come to the table and all of our differences are super important.
I agree. Which brings me to, I remember when I first started off working in telecommunications, and I had been in my leadership role for a while. And whether or not you know this about me, which no one probably does, I am an introvert by nature and an extrovert on demand because my job requires, what I do requires that I go out and speak. However, those who know me know that I can sit quietly in a room, read a book. Being engaging is not a must for me all of the time. So when I started my first career, and at that time I was working at a telecommunications company, I was doing extremely well, had just been promoted to a regional sales position from Indiana to Michigan, and had 42 sales managers and about 140 sales associates. Was doing extremely well, at the top of the percentage for performance. It was a sales based, and my average was about 140% of quota. My team was doing extremely well. But when we sat down and we were sitting in board meetings with our peers, I was silent. I said nothing. And everyone would go around the room and they would be talking. And I thought, and I'm being fully transparent, that I didn't have value. I didn't have anything to share that was going to change anyone's life. And might I remind you, I told you I was performing extremely well. My team was extremely well. I had a VP of sales, Chuck was outstanding. He brought me into his office one day and he said, Deneen, he says, I know how great you are. I know the things that you do for your team, but you don't speak up. You don't contribute in a group forum. I want people to know how great you are so that if I'm not in the room tooting your horn, they already know because you have spoken, you have contributed. And he said, I'm going to challenge you. Our next meeting, I'm going to call on you. And what he said next was wonderful. He says, there is nothing that you can do that we can't together fix. He says, I want you to be bold enough to make those decisions, to bring things to the table so that people can understand your perspective. That was the beginning of gaining influence and credibility. And I want to encourage you, if you're sitting in rooms where you're thinking, I don't have the authority, change your mindset and embrace the fact that you're sitting in that room for a reason. You are in your position for a reason. You have talents that need to be shared with your group, and the projects that you are rallying for are very important. You may not win every battle or every attempt, but continue to try, because each time you're building up your strength and you're gaining more influence, your credibility is also growing as well. I want to make sure that you understand this is a long haul game and people are watching, but you have all of the characteristics and the traits that you need to be successful. So we've talked about why is influence and credibility important. Let's move on to some other components. And I'm going to give you time to get there in your workbook. Some of the components of building credibility, which can help you gain influence. Think about it. Expertise. When you become an expert in your area, the go-to person that everyone comes to when they have a problem for specific areas, expertise. It is valuable in helping you to gain credibility. And you get to be an expert in your area by constantly learning, always seeking out different opportunities. That may even mean that you do some cross-departmental learning, reaching out and doing informational interviews with people in other departments so that you can learn how what you do impacts what they do. And of course, as you're doing that, people see that as an act of kindness and that you care. Then they're also going to be more agreeable to hear your insights and feedback in the future. Remember, you're building relationships. And I want to emphasize, you're not building relationships just so that you can go ask someone for something. You're building relationships to create a better community or culture in your work environment. And you're also establishing these relationships so that you can help and support others. Another way of building that credibility is building your trustworthiness, and you do that through transparency and honesty. One of the key things as a leader, and one of the things that I had to learn, and I learned that it pays off big time. We're in a culture where they say, fake it till you make it. I have issues with that statement. As a leader, yes, it is my job to know a lot of things. As a leader, it is your responsibility to know a lot of things. However, if you're in a situation where someone asks you a question and you don't have the answer, I know for some, I know for me at least, I had to swallow hard and say, you know what? I do not have the answer to that question. However, I'm taking note, give me, whether it be a couple hours or a day or whatever you determine, and I'll get back to you with that answer. The key thing is to make sure you do your research and you come back with the answer. You'll find that your team members will respect you more. Your credibility level will rise because you didn't take the route out and try to fudge your way through an answer or elaborate, and everyone would see through that, and everyone sees through that when you use that technique. But the idea, the fact that you own up to not knowing and then go find out and share that information helps build credibility. And I see we have increase. Follow-up is key. Yes, it is. I agree very much. The next one is goodwill. Remember when I talked about doing those informational interviews and going to find out what your department does impact someone in the other department and how you can help make someone else's life easier? That's extending goodwill. It also helps you to build those positive relationships, and it helps people to understand your intentions. We've already talked about transparency, and that's practicing open communication and vulnerability. One of the hardest things for me when I was starting off as a leader was that word vulnerability, because I thought that being vulnerable was a sign of weakness, and that if someone saw that I was weak, they were going to pounce. But I came to learn that having open communication and vulnerability made me real. People could relate to me. They felt comfortable coming and talking to me about situations. They also felt comfortable in sharing the ideas. When I took off the mask and I embraced being vulnerable, I also embraced this saying. I would tell people, do not mistake my silence and my kindness for an invitation to overrun me, because that will not happen. And that is one of the risks. I want to be transparent. One of the risks when you are vulnerable, some people will attempt to use that to their advantage. But the key thing is to keep your voice, also be respectful. And when someone else, and this of course is another topic we could talk about, when someone else crosses a boundary, you have to respectfully make them aware of the boundary that's been crossed, and also reiterate what the expectations are. Boundaries are crucial here.
Hey, I think Shar had a story to share.
Can I share a quick story? Yes, you can. Go right ahead. I want your interaction.
Great. So I worked at an organization for 20 years, and which means that I grew up there, and there's some great things about that, and there are some really bad things about that in terms of boundaries and whatnot, and being comfortable saying whatever and all that. And there was a time something happened. I can't really remember like exactly what it was, but I did not respond well. I had an emotional response, and it was to my entire team. So I supervised probably 10 people at the time. And it did not go well. How I handled it was not the best way. And it really took a toll. I could feel in the moment that this was like, I was too far in to stop, but I couldn't, like, it was just really bad. And so, I called everybody together the next day, and I apologized. And I just said, that just really wasn't my best work. And when I used that line, I said, I hope that you hear me out and really give me grace in this moment. Like, that's not my nature to respond in that way or whatever. And what happened was, we got over it and things were much better. But my people started saying when they would, things happened especially where I worked, it was a high stress kind of environment. But when they would, make missteps or whatever, it seemed like they were much more comfortable saying, yeah, that wasn't my best work. And, and I could only say, okay, what do we do to move forward from that? But it really opened the door for them to be transparent with me, and for them to own up to their mistakes and to be more humble with me, because some of that was their nature also, in the culture of the organization, but it was also because I didn't just fly off the handle and make a huge mistake and then expect them to just deal with it. I owned up to it and said, and was comfortable saying, that's not my best work. So, and we joke now when I run into them a lot of times, though, that's like the tagline that they remember, which 20 years of work, that's not necessarily a tagline I would want people to remember, but I'm glad that it kind of freed them up to then also be transparent when things happen.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because that is powerful. When we're human, we're going to make mistakes. As much as we would like to hope that we're going to show up the way we should each time, life happens. But the key thing, and I'm so glad that you mentioned it, is that you owned up to your behavior. You apologized, accepted responsibility, and then created an environment to move forward. Those are key steps as well in helping you build that credibility and gaining influence. Can you imagine how Your environment and your credibility level would have been impacted if you had not owned up to what happened and you just went on as though I hope somebody, no one notices. I'm just going to put it behind me. I'm not going to talk about it, and I'm just going to keep moving forward. You probably would have had a different outcome. But thankfully, you had the knowledge and the wisdom to be able to make the right decision, and that allowed you to move forward. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share. Is there anyone else that wanted to share before we move on? Let me check my. Yes, Sarah, you're right. That was a really good story. I love you guys for being able to engage and share your points of view. That makes this learning session so much lively, and it builds on what you're learning. So section 2, and you should be in section 2 in your workbook. And let's see what page is section 2 starting in your workbook. That starts on page 9, strategies to persuade and influence decision makers. Let's talk about why a strategy is important. A strategy helps you define your clear goals and objectives, ensuring you know what you want to achieve. There's nothing worse than attempting to go out and influence someone and you don't really know what you want to accomplish. So it's important to have clear, defined goals. Your well thought out strategy showcases your expertise. Again, you want to showcase that expertise, thoughtful thoroughness, and it helps you build credibility. Your strategic approach also ensures that you use your time, resources, and efforts efficiently. Focus on the most impactful activities. Last one I want to share with you, it enhances your ability to present compelling arguments, address objections, and achieve your goals. Again, I want to share those again because I know I ran through them a little quickly. A strategy helps you define clear objectives and goals, ensuring you know what you want to achieve. A well thought out strategy also showcases your expertise and thoroughness, building your credibility. It ensures that you use your time, effort, and resources effectively, focusing on the most impactful activities. It enhances your ability to present compelling arguments, address objections, and achieve your goals. Any questions or comments before we jump into some of the pitfalls of trying to gain influence and credibility? And I lost my chat box. Oh, let's see. Nope, there's no, there we are. There's nothing in the chat box. So with that, we're going to move on and talk about the pitfalls. And your pitfalls are going to be on page 10 of your workbook. Some of the pitfalls of trying to gain influence and credibility is overpromise and under-deliver. Saying that you're going to deliver the world and you deliver an ounce of work. You want to make sure that you don't get trapped into that. I run into individuals where their heart and their intentions are good, so they will promise you the world, and they will promise the world to multiple other individuals, which means that they're going to fall short in delivering for some individuals. And I will be transparent, it impacts how I see that person as being credible, reliable, and their ability to influence me in the future. Exaggerate or lie. That goes back into that overpromise and underdeliver. Or when you talk about exaggerate and lie, people will flat out say something that is not true. They will create data to support what they want to do, and they will use that as ammunition. Well, we all know that when you exaggerate or lie, everything comes to light. And when it does, you will reap the results. And that means that your credibility will be hurt and that people will no longer trust you. And regaining someone's trust after it has been damaged is an uphill battle. Keep that in mind. Another pitfall is when you dismiss or ignore others' opinions. You may not always agree with the opinions or of others, but be willing to hear them out, because many times there's some grain of truth in there, and there's some takeaways that you can use going forward. Also, when people express their opinions, you also get some key indicators on what's important to them, what's blocking them in accepting what you're trying to influence, and that helps you build your case down the road. Inconsistency also is another pitfall. Deliver some days you don't. Your report was due on Monday, you send it in on Thursday. If you are responsible for a team and you told your team members that you were going to deliver on something and you don't, that is an issue. One example comes to mind is that when I was working for an organization, we were going through a merger. And at that time, the merger was going to require that we lay off about 500 individuals. And of course, with any mergers and acquisitions, as the leader, I had to be in a lot of meetings, and I was privy to a lot of information about what was going on. However, if you've ever been in that situation, you know that information can't be shared until you have a written permission, or either verbal permission to share that information. But in the meantime, all of my team members were asking me, you know, what's going on? Are we going to lose our jobs? And all of the other questions that precede when a merger has been announced. And while I knew the answers to the questions, I had to respect the order had been given to me. I chose to tell my team, I said, yes, you know what? I do have answers to the questions that you're asking. However, right now, I have not been given the green light to be able to share. However, one thing I promise you is the moment I get information and I'm permitted to share with you, we'll sit down and have a face-to-face. I will come and give you all of the updates as they become available. Now, my team, they may not have liked that I didn't give them immediate answers, but they respected that I was truthful and honest. And the reason why I know that they did was because my counterpart took the other route. She told her team that she did not have any information, no one was telling her anything, and that she wasn't privy to any information. The results of rolling out and performance for our two teams were drastically different. Even in the midst of uncertainty, my team still performed. And while we didn't perform at 140% of our quota, we still hit 120% of our quota because my team continued to be focused, even in times of uncertainty, because I had built up my credibility and my influence through multiple acts and throughout my career. And then at the crucial time, when it was time to share, I shared that information. On the other hand, my counterpart, I think, might have ended out at 76% of their quota. The morale was very low. And it just shows how important it is to make sure that we are consistent in our words. Don't overpromise, don't overdeliver. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Do not exaggerate or lie. And number 5, don't make the mistake of focusing solely on your personal gain. People can identify very quickly when your only purpose is what's in it for me. And I think we've all heard it is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You have to have some skin in the game when it comes to caring for other people. That will take you a long way in your journey. Any questions, any comments? I don't see anything in the comments section. I am going to move us forward. Let's talk about some persuasion techniques. One common way that everyone is familiar with is through data. Use factual evidence to build trust. Remember I said factual evidence to build trust, because we all know that you can find numbers to support just about any point of view, but you want to be authentic and use integrity when you're using data, because that data will help you build your case. Commitment and consistency. Discuss the power of small commitments. What I mean by that is, have you ever heard the phrase, get your foot in the door? By that, you want to start with small things. Get people to agree with small things. Don't ask someone to climb a mountain day one. Ask them to walk a quarter of a mile or maybe 500 feet, but start with small, consistent commitments over time to build to your goal. Social proof. Let's talk about social proof. Social proof is where people look to the actions and behaviors of others to determine what is correct or acceptable in a given situation. This concept was popularized by Robert Cialdini in his book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. So you want to make sure that you have some allies, that you have some people that are on your team. Another persuasion technique is authority. Leverage positions of authority. Even if you don't have a position of authority, find out who does in your organization and then go a step further. I've used the technique of when I find out who's in authority and I find out what's important to them. When I find out what's important to them, then I can use that to help further my goal. And what I mean by that is, if a project is important to an individual, I find my opportunity to help support them. I'm helping to build my credibility by supporting them. And this has to be an authentic decision because, oh, I'm sorry, are we still? I think I hit a wrong button. I apologize.
We're still here. Yeah, it looks like there's a timer on the screen. That's all.
Okay, I do not know. Okay, there we go.
We're good.
Excellent. Sorry about that, everyone.
You're only human. It's okay.
I was moving my hands, and when it went to a button. I was like, oh my goodness, what did I do? Okay. Thank you so much for your grace. I greatly appreciate it. Give me 1 second. So we're talking about leveraging positions of authority, authentically, finding out what's important to them, finding a way that you can support and help them in reaching their goals. I always believe that whatever was important to when I was working in corporate America, whatever was important to my supervisor was important to me, because if I can help him achieve his goals and shine, that makes me look good and puts me in a position to talk with authority and to gain influence. I also do it with my clients now. Whatever's important to my clients becomes important to me. And I want to urge you, it is a great persuasion technique. Now, let's talk about any questions about that before we go any further.
No questions, just a comment that this is awesome and true.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I greatly appreciate it. We are rolling right along, and we are in navigating office dynamics without compromising your values. And I see we're at 9 o'clock and we are going to 9:30. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So I am going to speed up because I want to make sure we get to some key points, but we are covering everything. But just know I may talk extremely fast, and I apologize in advance for that because I want to get you to some of your breakout sessions. Navigating office dynamics without compromising your values. Let's talk about office politics. When I mention the word office politics, sometimes let me just ask, what comes to mind when I say office politics? Someone tell me what comes to mind.
Gossip.
Say that again.
Gossiping.
Gossiping. Okay.
I would say
Drama. Oh, Margaret said it. Drama. Definitely drama.
Politics are always there, whether it's good or bad.
Absolutely.
You hit on something, and we're going to go a little bit further for that. Office politics, the use of power and social networking within a workplace to achieve changes that benefit individuals or groups. When we hear that term, and I must admit, when I often heard it in the past, I would think the same things that you're talking about, because those are some characteristics of office politics, the drama, the gossiping. However, office politics and some other things that might come to mind is manipulation, deception, favoritism, toxic work environment, inefficiency, misallocation of resources, career sabotage, unethical behavior. Those are the things that would normally come to mind. But I have come to realize that's not always true. office politics can be beneficial when you learn how to operate. And when I say operate effectively, we're holding on to our integrity, our authenticity, and we're keeping our word. So let's talk about, you mentioned some of these, the common office political behavior, favoritism, information control, the gatekeeping, the lobbying, strategic volunteering, self-promotion, flattery, undermining. Those are the things that are typically associated. But I want to draw your attention to some of the positive areas of office politics behavior. Networking. There's nothing wrong with networking. Use it to your advantage. Building alliances. Nothing wrong with building alliances. Use it to your advantage. Remain ethical. And then also self-promotion. A lot of people say, oh my goodness, self-promotion. I don't want to do that. You cannot afford to be the best kept secret. I'm going to say it again. You cannot afford to be the best kept secret. People need to know what you know and how you can impact change in your organization. Are we kind of shifting and opening our eyes to how office politics can be used to our advantage in a positive way? I see some comments coming in. Let's see. Yep, okay. I'm the best kept secret. No, Charlotte, you cannot be the best kept secret. People need to know about you. For introverts, I reframe self-promotion as storytelling. I like that. That is very good insight. Now let's go. Some tips for navigating your office politics. Identify your core values. Set boundaries. We talked about that earlier. Lead by example. Stay honest and transparent. Choose your battles. One of the key things I always tell my team, I identify whether or not it's a battle we can win or it's one worth fighting. And the reason why I'm able to do that is because I've done my due diligence. I have allies in the field, people that are able to give me some insight that may not be readily available. And I have been constantly evolving in my knowledge area. So I know the battles that are worth fighting, the ones that we can. That doesn't mean that I don't want to hear the insight from my team and my peers, but you also want to make sure that you're not choosing to fight a battle that your company has perhaps maybe decided that it is not the route that they're going, and they have adamantly made that decision, and nothing is going to change. Choose your battles wisely. Of course, navigating office politics requires that you build strong relationships. Maintain your professionalism at all times. People will push your buttons, but it is key that you remember that at the end of the day, your reputation is at stake. So making sure that you are presenting yourself is crucial. Keep mentorship and guidance. Everyone should have a mentor or a coach or a guide in their hip pocket, someone that they can bounce ideas off, someone that they trust that has their best interest at heart. That doesn't mean that that person has to be within your organization. Sometimes it's quite beneficial to find someone outside of your organization that you can confide in and be able to establish a relationship to be able to share. Here's another crucial one: document and communicate decisions. Documentation serves for two purposes. Number one, it gives you a reference for things that have occurred. And if things escalate, it also serves as evidence of your journey and the decisions and the actions that have been made. Again, remain authentic. When we talk about navigating office politics, one of the key things that we must always remember is to remain true to our core values. Core values are fundamental beliefs that guide our behavior, decision-making, and it impacts how we show up as an individual in an organization. Any questions before we move forward? There are going to be times when you're in a situation that that's going to be ethically challenging, I want to say. So the best way to make decisions in those times is to realize that you can't avoid making a decision, but you can determine what you're going to do. So number one, identify the ethical dilemma that you're dealing with. Number two, consider the impact on you and the stakeholders. Evaluate options and consequences. Every action has a consequence. You want to find out whether or not it's worth you taking. Make a decision and take responsibility. Always make decisions that align with your values. When you do that, you can hold your head up high every day at that meeting. You can walk through the hallways. You can show up on Zoom in meetings with your head held high. Everyone may not agree with the decisions that you make, but if they are made ethically and with integrity, then you are in a perfect place. We have some comments coming in. Okay, yes, you will have access. I have the same question, Claire. Will we have access to these presentation slides? Yes, you'll have access to the recording and the PowerPoint, but not the PowerPoint, but the workbook, but not the slides. That's a great question. So then let's go ahead and talk about developing actionable influence tactics, building workplace alliance and networking tips. How to build alliances and network to work and network to, oh my gosh, I got tongue tied. How to build alliances and networks at work to gain influence and credibility. Here's a couple of ways that you can do it. You can cultivate authentic relationships, identify your key stakeholders, and establish some relationships with those individuals. Participate in cross-functional teams. Remember, I talked about that earlier. You want to get involved in what someone else is doing, seeing how it impacts them, and what you do, how it impacts their area. Offer value before asking for favors. It's when you go to a networking event and you connected with someone, and each time that they connect with you, they're asking you for something. They haven't delivered on anything, but they're asking you for something every time you come in contact with them. That wears old very quickly. What I want to encourage you to do is start finding ways that you can add value to individuals, because you're building up your credibility. You're building up your influence. Think of those actions. They may not pay off today, but they'll pay off in the future, because people always remember what you've done to assist them. Then make sure that you're always communicating effectively. And I know I have gone into my speed up mode, so if anyone needs me to pause and slow it down, please don't hesitate to chime in and say, Deneen, I need you to slow down, and I will do that. Some other ways to build your alliances. Attend networking events, internal and external, regarding your company. You want to find organizations that have interest to you in your career and what you're doing, because the best way to increase your knowledge is being exposed to different points of views in different organizations that people have insight that you may not be privy to. You'll always want to be networking. Seek, of course, mentorship and provide mentorship. Sometimes we think about mentorship and we say, oh, it's a one-way street. I'm just looking for someone to mentor me. Many times you gain so much information from those that you mentor than you actually realize. So don't miss out on that opportunity. Be visible and accessible. Don't want to be the best kept secret. Come out of your office. If you're back into the office in your work environment, come out of your office, go and engage in conversations with other people outside of your department. Don't be the best kept secret. I'm gonna keep saying that. Leverage social media and internal platforms to show your expertise. We talked about how you can use LinkedIn. If your organization has an internal platform where you can share your insights and findings, take the opportunity to take advantage of those. And of course, practice reciprocity and recognition. Give people credit for what they do. Give people recognition. Make sure that you are not only tooting your horn, you're tooting the horn of others. When they do something fantastic, support them. Be vocal about it. And let me check my chat box to make sure I'm not overlooking. How do those of us who work from home become more visible? Oh, that's a great question. If you are working from home, one way for you to become more visible is you need to start scheduling some one-on-one meetings with people within your organization. I'm not talking about a 30-minute chat. It might be a 15-minute get to know you. Have your questions prepared and let the person that you're reaching out to know, yes, I want to reach out and I want to talk to you. My goal is to know more about what people in our organization do. And I'm starting with you. I want to find out how I can support your endeavor and your goals. When you do that, word is going to spread. And I was talking to so-and-so the other day, and we had a one-on-one meeting, and did you know that their department was doing X, Y, and Z? It spread. So that would be one of the ways that I would definitely recommend. And then if your organization has a platform, use it. Use your LinkedIn, and then tag individuals that might be interested in that topic. There are subtle ways that you can gain. Do not go and tag 100 people every time you post, but be strategic about how you tag people. I hope that helps. Volunteer for projects outside of your normal scope. Speak in conversations. That is good, good stuff. Did I miss anything? Okay. Kara, I hope that helped. Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, we are at 9:12, and I'm going to be fully transparent. We do not have the opportunity to do this networking breakout activity because there's some other information that I want to share with you. Do I have your permission not to do this networking breakout activity?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I just want to be respectful, and I want to make sure that I deliver what I promised, but I also I want to be respectful of your time. So we're going to go straight through there, and we are going to talk about in your handout on pages 21 through 25. If you have those in front of you, please take the opportunity to get there. And 21 through 25 is the section where you're going to take action. The way this workbook is set up, everything before pages 21 was information that I was downloading to you. Pages 21 through 25 gives you the opportunity to apply what you have learned. Please know that the two, what's the word? Breakout sessions was not new material. It was just you being able to use some of the material that we've learned. So you haven't missed anything in regards to that. You will still be able to take action and do some of these things. I want you to take a few minutes, and we're not going to break out into this session because I want to spend some more time. When you do this on your own time, I want you to take a few minutes and think about a current situation you are facing or will face in the future. How would influence and credibility help you in that situation? Consider all the techniques you have learned today and spend some time answering the following questions on the next 2 pages. And so I am going to walk you through the first part of that in your handout, which is on page 22. You're going to talk about what's the current or future situation that you're going to face that requires influence and credibility. Give that some thought so that this can be a meaningful roadmap. I don't want this to just be a mindless activity. You spent time and effort being here. I want you to actually be able to use the information. Why is this situation significant to you and your work? Then the next section, we're going to talk about some techniques that you can apply. Which techniques for building influence and credibility will be the most effective in this situation? Why is that? Why would it be effective? Secondly, how can you use data? Remember, we talked about data helps or evidence to support your position. What steps can you take to build or strengthen relationships with key stakeholders regarding this situation? Then next, expected outcomes. And your expected outcomes is going to be on page 24 of your workbook. You're going to talk about what are the potential outcomes if you're successful applying these techniques. How will enhanced influence and credibility improve your ability to navigate this situation? What challenges might you face in applying these techniques, and how can you overcome them? being able to forecast what your challenges are going to be and then figure out a solution helps in your situation. Any questions about that part of your activity? I see someone might be trying to talk, but I think they might be on mute. We have nothing. Let me check. I see 7. Okay, everyone was okay. And okay, so then when you had done that, we were going to come back and we were going to talk about a debrief. But we're not talking about the debrief. We are going to focus on the next set of your handout. If you will, take a look at page 26. And let me see if I can pull that over to the other screen. Are you able to see the creating your action plan?
Yes.
Excellent. So that's on page 26. What I want you to do is to use this as a template for you moving forward to be able to make the decisions of gaining influence and credibility. Think about a specific goal. What specific areas do you want to influence in your workplace? This isn't a one and done. I would honestly recommend that you visit this once a quarter because you want to be affecting change at least once a quarter within your organization. But you want to be working on influence and credibility on a daily basis because every action and every word that we speak either helps us gain credibility and influence or it takes away from that. So we also want to look and see why are these areas important to you? You always have to know the why. Why is it important to you? Why is it important to your career? If we go on to the next page, we're going to assess the your current influence and credibility level. How do you currently perceive your level of influence within your organization? What are your strengths and areas you can improve? What feedback have you received from colleagues and supervisors about your influence and credibility? That information is going to be crucial because you'll get a chance to see how others view you. Your next area, we're going to build a strategy to build that credibility. What actions can you take to enhance your credibility? Consider elements like expertise, trustworthiness, and goodwill. Those are the things that we talked about earlier in the presentation. Then next, oops, I'm sorry, I forgot. Persuasion techniques. Identify key persuasion techniques you will use in each of your situations. Next, network and alliances. We've talked about gaining networks and alliances. Who are your key individuals? So make sure that you're able to identify those and know that sometimes those individuals' level of influence might change. So you want to revisit. How can you build stronger relationship with those stakeholders and how can you build alliances? Next, effective communication. Being able to articulate your vision to someone else helps you persuade. How will you tailor your communication to different audiences? You know that there are certain people that like to receive information a certain way. I personally, when someone is delivering information, I want the facts and bullet points so that I can have the information first, and then you can then present a more expanded case. Knowing that when you're communicating with me is very helpful. What key messages do you want to convey to the individual that you're trying to influence? Goes on. Ethical consideration. How will you ensure that you navigate office dynamics without compromising your values? That's very important. What key messages do you want to convey? And then next gives you tasks and timelines that you want to work towards getting that taken care of. And then finally, you have 2 other sheets for your goal and strategy. So this is an active worksheet that you can use over and over again. And it'll also, if you're training a team and you're bringing them on board, it's something that you might want to, share the knowledge with them so that they are more equipped to be able to handle these situations. And we are at 9:21. I want to first say thank you. This has been a wonderful, engaged audience, and I greatly appreciate it. I hope that I have brought value to you and that I've met your expectations as to what this workshop was to be. I want to open it up and let's have a dialogue. Answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come back into view and say thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope that you have enjoyed our time together. And if you have any questions, we have 9 minutes to answer questions, talk about any insight. I want to hear from you. I have a thick skin, so I don't insult easy, and I want to make sure that I've answered any questions or have the opportunity to answer any questions that you might have that weren't covered in this workshop. And one thing before anyone says anything, now I know that I needed 30 more minutes.
I was just going to say that I feel like I've been always good about being transparent about what's going on and like, you know, admitting when I got something wrong or that sort of thing, building relationships with people. But I feel like I lose some of that credibility or influence sometimes because I can't always get my thoughts together. So I think sometimes people think I ramble a little bit, and I feel like that decreases the effectiveness of my message. And I don't know how to, narrow that in or like still build that influence. I'm doing it right now. Influence and credibility, even if my thoughts don't always I don't always say something and it sounds really profound and solid and but I know what I'm talking about, but I do this.
I completely understand. And I will tell you one way to help you with that is to identify what's the most important thing you want to get across in one sentence. Lay that out there. Nail it in your mind, practice it. And then when you're delivering, you deliver that one important sentence and you pause. Don't feel the need to fill the airspace. Let people resonate with what you have just said. Because what happens when we ramble is that we decrease the value of what we have just said. And that because then as you're, not you personally, but as the person rattles, I have forgotten about that main point that they made at the beginning. And I'm like, where are we going? And so my advice, one statement, narrow it down to one sentence and pause. People will ask you questions, then that gives you the opportunity. Answer that, go on to the next.
Okay, that's helpful. And it sounds like other people have the same problem. So I appreciate people sharing that.
Oh, you are not alone. And on certain days, you might catch me when I rattle, when I'm going. So let's see, did I miss anyone else that had? Do you feel women?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I put one in the chat. Just who would be your mentor influencer?
Oh, gosh. I have a lot. And some of them I've never met face to face because I watch their work online, or either I've gone to a workshop and I've heard them speak. When it comes to, and this might be a little deep, but I'm going to do it. I live my life a certain way by a certain set of rules that are in a certain book. So when I am doing what I do, it always has to be a reflection of that. That's the simplest way for me to share that without getting on a soapbox and having Elise disconnect my microphone. But someone else answered, do women have to work harder at building influence and credibility? I will say yes, and I say that with two parts. Number one is because we get in our own way. I hate the phrase that when people say, imposter syndrome, because I think that was something that someone made up so that someone else could have another issue in dealing with something. We know who we are and who we're created to be and what we bring to the table. I don't need anyone feeding me doubt. I don't have an imposter syndrome. I know my talent and my value. Did it take me time to get there? Yes. But don't buy into the narrative that people are bringing. And secondly, yes, we do have to come in harder and stronger because unfortunately we do work in environments where men's opinions, and guys, I'm sorry, I'm not dumping on you, but it's seen as valid authority. How you overcome that, come with your facts, your data, and most importantly, don't be afraid to stand up. If someone interjects while you're speaking and consistently, and you know in the back of your head when you're being disrespected, you need to have key words that said, you know what, I don't want to call a name because it might be a name of someone here. Say so and so. I respect that, but let me finish what I am presenting, and then we'll open up the table to discussion. Stand your ground. If you have to come back and say it over and over again, stand your ground and continue on. Maybe an offsite question that you have to, a discussion afterwards, but don't be afraid to voice your opinion with authority, authenticity, and be true to you. It will come over time. So I hope that answered your question. Did we have another question? I've answered that one. Let's see. Oversharing. Oversharing can be a problem, but there's a trick to that. Overshare what's beneficial at that situation, at that given time, right then and there. For example, when I first started off, I didn't like the idea of being vulnerable because, you have to share a side of yourself that people have to see. And it's like, oh my God, if I have to do that, then they'll see the cracks in my armor. And I don't want to have to deal with that. But I learned and I made a decision. These are the things I'm willing to share and talk about. I satisfy people's needs to know me. They feel as though they have some insight. And I don't feel like I'm oversharing because I have established the guidelines of what I'm going to share. I hope that helps. Jefferson Fisher's videos have been a great help to me. That's good. I'm going to have to add that to my repertoire and go check that out. Let's see, any other questions? I feel like women do have to work harder, especially in male-saturated environments. Once we value equality in the platform, we'll be balanced. It's mentality. You're right. It's mindset. And it's also people stepping up to be allies and voicing and speaking on your behalf when you're not in that room. I've had individuals to do it. That can change the game for you. And it's crucial that you find those individuals. Anything else? One of the best books that I ever read about leadership is No Ego by Cy Wakeman. Excellent. Helped you to not take things personally. And I know not taking things personally can be a very hard challenge. But when you dissect it and move away the emotions out of it and look at the facts, that allows you to respond with the facts. Because when we respond with emotion, then we buy into that. Oh, women are too overly emotional and they don't understand. See, oh, she's just emotional. We don't want that to be our narrative. Okay, it says I make it a point. Okay, and then we have James said I make it a point to lean on my female leaders for their input because I know that this is, oh wait, where did it go? This is a real thing that people don't speak about. James, that is really good to be able to lean in. One of the things that's important is as we lean in and we, and this is not to you, James, personally, is we want to take advantage of educating ourselves on different areas as well. So that when we come to an individual, we can say, you know what, during my research, this is what I found. Have you experienced X? And how can I support you towards that? Because then the individual doesn't have the pressure that, oh my God, it's my responsibility to educate them. It's an open dialogue on the same level. But I agree, being able to use your resources is an excellent thing. I like the way, okay, thank you, Dana, I'm sorry. Okay.
Danny.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I want to be respectful. We are at 9:30. I know I looked over a couple of them. I might have missed a couple, I should say. And for that, I greatly apologize. This has been a great morning.
Yes, yes. Deneen, we're like, all of us are really thinking we need to bring you back. We need to continue the conversation, have a part 2. So let's give Deneen a round of applause, appreciation. Thank you so much for being here and getting us started in this conversation. This is ongoing. You said this isn't just an overnight. This is lifelong in our careers. So we really appreciate you. And, please provide feedback. Deneen would love to hear your feedback. We put a survey link in the chat box. I'll send one. It's also in the QR code here. If you're wanting to, talk about this further in your organization or bring Deneen to your organization, reach out to me, reach out to us at Schaefer, and we can make that happen for custom training. Also, we've got more workshops. It's still summer, but we've got workshops. So the next workshop is almost a little bit of a similar topic in just a different light of leading from anywhere, strategies for leading up and across. So it builds on what we're talking about. This is an in-person workshop that will happen at the Innovation Connector in Muncie. We also have The Future of Work is Here, how to attract and retain top young talent in a digital world. We have a special presentation from the Sheriff of Delaware County about his pursuit of excellence, a law enforcement perspective, and how to build relationships to negotiate anything. So it's a great month, or great 2 months, I should say. And we appreciate you. Let us know if you have any questions. And thank you so much for participating. We love seeing the chat box. It was awesome. All of your feedback and support of one another. Take care, everybody.
This is awesome.